What's up, boys? Tricks Ridiculous back with another video, and I've got a pretty sweet one for you today. This is a ranged Captain America build, so a little bit off meta. Right off the bat, will say this is probably not the best build in the game, but I think it's a pretty fun build, and, as we wait for new content, I've been just looking for kind of things to fool around with. This is a pretty easy build to slot into if you already have a Captain America leveled up. I assume you're probably playing it as an Infinite Brooklyn Brawler, but if you're looking for something different, this is a really fun build to play, and it's actually pretty good. I was really impressed with some of the damage that I've been putting out, and I'm not even min-maxed at all with this build. I've been farming for some gear for it, but I'm not going too crazy. Honestly, just the way I have it now is absolutely fine for pretty much all content. If you have better gear, I'm sure many of you will have better gear for this. Just slot it in. What I'm trying to give you here is really just the bones, kind of what to aim for with your gear, the different skills to pick, and how to really make it work. But as we all know, Captain America, the way his range attacks work, he throws it out and then he ricochets it around on the kickback, so it's going to hit up to 4 extra enemies on the second kickback, right? So you're hitting about 5 enemies each throw. The damage is actually pretty respectable. It's not the most amazing single target. It's not like a Black Widow, single target. You're not going to be melting Abomination or Taskmaster with any crazy attacks, but I regularly get, with crits, usually like 60 to 70k per clink of the shield, right? So you throw it out, you kick it back, you're hitting 5 guys each for 60 to 70k, sometimes even more if you can get the battery effect going. That's pretty respectable damage, and again, remember, it's spreading over a wide area. So really the goal of this build, not to be a single target monster, but really more of just a crowd control kind of ad clear guy. And there is also a trick that I'm going to show you in just a second that you can actually super jump with Captain America using your ranged throw. Some of you may already know this. I just found this out. I didn't see this anywhere. And after I discovered it, at first thought it was just a little gimmicky, but as I continued to play this build, I actually found it really, really helpful. So let me just give you a quick clip of how that works right now, and we'll be right back. All right, boys, so it's really easy. All you do, just charge up your power range throw, and then right when you release it, hit that jump button. You're going to get that super jump. You see here? I'll do it again. Boop, just right there. And then while you're in the air, you can actually kick it back while it goes out. So you can stay in the air for a pretty good amount of time. I'll show you again. Boop. Oh, no, missed it up there. See, timing can be a little tricky, but basically as he's spinning to, actually release the shield, that's when you do it. Boom, there you go. All right, boys, so there you go. So a pretty cool little trick you'll see in the gameplay at the end. It actually is pretty useful for kind of flinging yourself around and really taking control of the battle. But right now, let's get into the actual statistics here. I'll show you kind of the stats, what you'd want to kind of go for on gear, and then we'll go into the skills. So for your stats, might, obviously 0. We're not really going to be doing much melee damage at all with this build. Precision, obviously our most important thing. Really as much precision as you can get will be extremely useful. I could probably use a little bit more. My gear is not perfect, but even with 250, I'm doing some really, really good damage. Proficiency is nice. Having a little crit is good. You probably don't need too much of this. We definitely do want crits. We do get a little bit of crit chance through our rally cry, and then we do also want to kind of keep our damage buff up at all times, so that also gives you some extra crit. So you don't need to go too high on proficiency, but a little bit will certainly help. Valor. Obviously, we want big Valor. Valor is the best stat in the game. No difference here for Captain America. Steamroller is an extremely powerful attack that on its own can absolutely decimate enemies, especially if you have a damage buff going. You can kind of throw that Steamroller clear up to 8 enemies very easily, as long as they're kind of, rank and file enemies, and then make a ton of heroic orbs for yourself and the team to be able to just do it again. So really, really powerful. Steamroller, really a big part of this. And then, of course, if we're dealing crits, we want high crit damage. So Valor overall is just absolutely fantastic. Resolve, resiliency, these, you don't want none, but you can certainly kind of skimp on it. You'll notice my defense rating is only about 927 right now. And honestly, it's fine. He's definitely a little fragile, but I don't really have a problem with it. Again, keep in mind, same thing with my ranged Thor build. You're not really in the fight, right? You're kind of in the back, kind of just hucking in your shield, dealing some wide damage, throwing guys around. Because remember, the shield throw kind of knocks enemies off their feet too. So you're just it's more of a support, just kind of a ranged support build. Just kind of putting in that work from range. Again, you're not really in the fight, so it's pretty easy to kind of stay out of things, not get targeted, and just stay alive that way. And then intensity, I'm kind of right on the sweet spot with intensity. You want a little bit because stun and status meter damage is nice to have. It's certainly not the most important thing, but intensity is the only stat on the stat sheet that really has kind of a drop off. So a little bit of intensity actually goes a long way, but a lot of intensity does nothing. So right about 70 intensity-ish is where you want to be. You'll notice my stun status meter is about 50.7. That's about perfect. Any more intensity and we start getting like really rapid diminishing returns. So about 70 or so intensity. If you have less, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Honestly, if I could take that 70 intensity and throw it right into precision, it would probably be 100 times better. But if you have a little bit of intensity, that's fine too. Just don't go overboard with it. So that's really it for the stats. As far as the gear itself, it's really nothing too crazy. You really don't need much. The biggest thing is that you just want something with ranged power attacks, deals whatever type of damage. It can be cryo, it can be PIM, it really doesn't matter. We are really, unfortunately, not taking too much advantage of the battery effect, at least not directly on Captain America. I'm sure most of you guys by now have multiple characters leveled, so when you're playing with your companion AI, they're probably dealing a ton of all different types of status damage. So, that's how my game is too, my account. So I have, other companion AI dealing tons and tons of cosmic and particle damage and whatever the case may be. So I tend to get, battery hits regularly with cryo damage. But unfortunately, really just the way kind of the build works, there's really no way to apply a damage with one of Captain's effects and then kind of have the opposite effect on the other one. But honestly, doesn't really matter too much. Range power attacks deal cryo damage, whatever you can get something to deal a ranged power attack as an element, that's what you want to look for. But otherwise, really the stats more than anything are what matters. You'll notice some of these pieces have some of these perks are almost irrelevant, but it's really just the stats that I was looking for. And then one of the other things you really want, if you can get like a kill 3 enemies, get a damage buff, kind of like a berserker rage on your protector here, that would be very good to have. I like this one because it gives increased crit chance on power attacks. And then it's got berserker buff, which is 16 hits. That's not impossible to do. That's basically like 2 steamrollers or just like a couple of throws. It's pretty easy if you're just like staying way in the back and just kind of throwing your steamroller, throwing your your shield out there. It's not impossible to land 16 hits, but it's not ideal. If I could have, the kill 3 enemies to get a damage buff, that would be much better, but having the extra crit chance on power attacks is pretty nice. So whatever gear you can get for it, just try to have something that can keep your damage buff on at all times, and then just try to get some good range stats for it. And then obviously on your artifact, precision, kind of a no-brainer there. And then for our major artifact, I'm using the Ring of Nebelung. I think it's the best one for this build. Again, we're not really proccing the battery effect like solo with Cap, so it's not like we're really trying to spread too much element. So the Tactagon is not great. The Sacred Nornstone of Lethal Will really doesn't do much of anything for us, and obviously the Darkhold is kind of irrelevant in this build as well. The Ring of Nebelung is really good. We're going to be generating quite a few heroic orbs and using our abilities pretty liberally. You will definitely want to use our steamroller quite a bit on some of the weaker enemies because it really is good at just creating tons and tons of heroic orbs. And we're really going to want Rally Cry and Brooklyn Brawler up almost always because they're both pretty direct damage boosts to this build. So just being able to keep kind of all of that stuff off cooldown and use it really liberally, that really is just why the Ring of Nebelung is perfect in this build. So that's it for the gear. Again, there's nothing that really makes this build. There's no like very specific exotic or specific unique perk you need. Honestly, just try to get, you know, a good piece here for some good range damage. If you could even get, you know, range power attacks have a chance of giving you a damage buff, that would even be even better on this. But really just try to get some, you know, min-max your stats there, and then however the gear lands, it should probably work for the build. So that's really it. I'm going to go into skills next, and this is really where the build kind of takes form. So I'll see you guys there. All right, boys, so here is the skill tree for Captain America. So here's the specialty if you just want to take a screenshot and just copy it kind of skill for skill. And there's the mastery as well if you just want to copy it skill for skill. But I'll go over all of these. So for your support heroic, we're going to be using Field Commander for the extra duration. We don't really want Point Man because the taunt is not going to be good for us. We're not a high defense character. We don't want to be drawing enemies. We want to kind of just put in support from range. So having that extra 5 seconds is really quite nice. And then we're really just going to want threat control. You know, crit attacks marked by Rally Cry deal 15% bonus stun damage. This is great. Obviously, you know, we're going to want to kind of be in Rally Cry all the time. It's really just a nice boost for us. Coming into our Assault Heroic, this one's pretty straightforward. Same thing you would use in almost any Captain America build. Secret Weapon for the 2 charges, and then the Vanguard charge for the Heroic Orb on 2 enemies killed. I can't speak highly enough about this. I almost think it's glitched because it tends to spawn multiple. It spawns way more than, you know, 1 Heroic Orb every 2 enemies if you throw it into a crowd of drones or whatever. So I don't know exactly how the math falls on this one, but I don't change these for anything. The Secret Weapon and the Vanguard charge, kind of a no-brainer there for me. So coming over to Brooklyn Brawler, this is where it gets interesting. So obviously we're not using the Infinite Brooklyn Brawler. We're going to be using Strong Arm. So while Brooklyn Brawler is active, range attack damage and impact are increased by 25%. So that's your flat 25% attack damage for your ranged attacks, and also the impact. So what that is kind of how the enemies get flung around. So it's kind of a weird stat. It's not something on the stat sheet or anything, but you'll notice anyone who plays Captain America knows, you know, when you throw the shield around, some of the enemies kind of, you know, ping pong around. They kind of, sometimes they get hit with it and they go flying across the map. That's impact. That's what that is. So it's really just kind of the chance of them doing that and kind of how much they're affected by it. So with this up, the extra 25%, you're going to see it a little bit more. You're going to see kind of those enemies get, you know, ragdolled around the map, and it really just makes things easier for your teammates. Can kind of clear guys around. Make sure, you know, people aren't getting ganged up on. It's kind of something that doesn't sing on the stat sheet very well, but it's very useful in game. And then coming over to the other side, we're using Unfair Advantage just for a little extra energy, you know, while collecting those heroic orbs. Again, we're going to want Brooklyn Brawler up pretty much all the time. So this really makes it, this combined with the Ring of Nebelung, really makes it that we get it back pretty quickly with our heroic orbs. I've tried Unwavering Defense. It's okay. The problem is you're really not invincible. You can block any attack, but you're still subject to your intrinsic bar, which, you know, if they're hitting you with big red attacks, it's going to drain pretty quick. But, you know, otherwise, I don't really see too much of a use for this. And then, you know, takedowns extend the duration by 3 seconds. This is the classic, but I wouldn't use this unless you're going with the CQC specialist for the Infinite Brooklyn Brawler. So for this build, because we're not doing that, I think Unfair Advantage is just a better one so that we can kind of keep our Brooklyn Brawler up. So then coming over to the mastery, so really it is pretty straightforward here. Ranged damage mastery, increase all range damage by 15%. For this one, I'm using air juggling. None of these really help us at all. This is kind of just the only one that might maybe help us. But otherwise, we're probably not going to get really any of these going. Heroic takedown mastery, I don't think I have to speak to that one. That one's pretty obvious. You're not going to be doing too many takedowns in this build, but when you do, you're going to want a heroic orb. So coming over to our range attack mastery, so I'm using enhanced throw. I think this is the best one. I'm not really crazy about the combo pin or the combo kickback. I think they're both pretty meh. Honestly, I don't really use Cap's standard ranged combo very much. We're mostly using power attacks in this build. I will use it sometimes when it's like a single target, if there's a dreadbot or whatever the case may be, but I find it really tough to use. It's really inaccurate. For anyone who's, tried to use it with Cap, you'll know, like, sometimes the shield goes, like, very wide right. It's very hard to aim. So I really don't use it too much unless I just need, like, a quick kill on a guy who's right in front of me, or if it's, like, a really, large target enemy, I'll give him kind of a close-up ranged combo. You'll get a little bit better damage than trying to do power attacks over and over. But for 99% of our gameplay, enhanced throw is just better for us. So coming over to our range attacks, power throw damage mastery. This one pretty straightforward for us. We're going to be using range power attacks almost exclusively. So we get 15% extra damage against each target hit. That's absolutely great. You could go with the stun. I don't think it's worth it. This is what I normally use if I'm not playing a ranged build. But because we're getting all of our damage from range, I feel like an extra damage boost is just gravy on top. And then Precision Heroic Dynamo, so 15% chance to generate a heroic orb when defeating enemies with headshots. Honestly, when they say 15% here, what they really mean is about 85%. When I tell you you're going to be getting heroic orbs literally all the time, and I don't know if it's just the way Captain America works. I don't know if, like, when you do a crit just normally versus an actual hitting a guy in the head, I don't know if that triggers this or procs this. But I can tell you, like, you can throw something out, it'll ricochet off of 4 guys. If it kills all of them, you'll probably get 2 heroic orbs out of it. Like, that's a pretty standard way to do it. Believe me, try it out or watch from the gameplay that you're about to see. You get heroic orbs nonstop with this. I don't know why it works the way it does. It's definitely not 15%. And then coming over to these, none of these are really important. Kind of same as, we've seen in previous builds. So I'm not really going to go over these. You've got energy regeneration, and then kind of max block. I think these are just the best ones overall. You can go with a little more max block. Not super relevant. I like the regen speed just because I think I mostly use my block just to actually travel around the map a little faster, or to just kind of run through enemies and not have to worry about things. So that's really why I like to just get it back quickly. But honestly, you could put anything in here and it shouldn't matter too much. And then, Captain's Defense, we don't really use this, but, it can be useful. Honestly, nothing in any of this intrinsic tree is really going to do too much for us. We're not going to be really using our intrinsic attacks, so it shouldn't really matter too much. But that's really it for kind of the skill tree here. So like I said, you're going to be spamming your power attacks. I use it with that super jump pretty regularly, and I got to tell you, you kind of feel like a god kind of throwing that shield around. It's really, really fun to play. I'm going to leave you guys with some gameplay footage, but honestly, I mean, give this build a try. It's really not that hard to get the gear for. Just throw on some stuff with precision, and then just try to get a good ranged piece that can give you some stuff on power attacks, and then just switch your skill tree to kind of how I have it and give this build a whirl. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Like I said, I wouldn't bring this into the raid or anything. I don't think it's that good, but it's definitely unique and it's something pretty fun. So I'll leave you guys with some gameplay. You can see that it actually is pretty powerful, but otherwise that's it from me. If you like the video, be sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.